SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
DinnerBellCorinth.com has the best food in Corinth, Mississippi. Awarded Best Salad Bar, Best Steakhouse, Best Overall Restaurant, and Best Lunch and Dinner under $10. You can't beat it. For delicious food at affordable prices, order online. Visit DinnerBellCorinth.com.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
What is happening today, Rhino?
Oh, not too terribly much. We're almost to the weekend.
Yes, we are. It is a bit warm outside, but it is August. The sultry days of August are here in the Magnolia State. It looks like there's a little convection out there in the Atlantic. Doesn't appear to be a threat to land at this point, which is good news. And we, of course, are approaching, that'd be the 20th anniversary of the devastating Hurricane Katrina. What's the date on that? Later on in the month, right? That was not a cool deal whatsoever. But I suspect there will be some events across the state commemorating the ordeal. Certainly nothing to celebrate. It's one of those things where most people can remember where they are, what they were doing, what was going on during that time period. I certainly do. Fortunately, for the most part here in central Mississippi, we were spared, although power. You remember that?
Gas.
And gas, that's right. We were without it. And there was spotty service still available, still up. But overall, most of the place was dark. You know, when we located our data center, this was back in 2001, in the Jackson State University East Center, that's was a great place because that East Center was built, the building was built by the Allstate Corporation in the 70s. And it was serviced by, I'm a little out of my league here, but if you look at the way electricity is distributed, all the feeds that served central Mississippi connected into this building intentionally. It also sat atop the fiber loop that was planned to be installed. At that time, it was planned that would encircle the metro area of Jackson. And it's obvious what they chose that location for in southwest Jackson. First, so that they didn't lose power, because this building housed something we don't have a lot of as much today with all the AI technology and bot technology. It was a call center. If you were a customer of Allstate, you would call. Your call may get routed to that facility. And when it was in its prime, it had 1,200 contact center agents in that building, 180,000 square foot building. And then, of course, the need for that diminished over time, and in the 90s, they collapsed all that into another facility. But where I'm going with this is when we made the decision to locate the data center in there, it was based on that. The physical location, because the last mile was just up the elevator chute, from the fiber underground. So you had a lot less risk of loss of connectivity into the major telecom carriers' internet service. And then we always knew when this place loses power, the whole Tri-County area is pretty much dark. Katrina, that's exactly what happened. Only time in the time that I was, of course, involved with the company, 20 years, we sold it in 2019. Only time we ever lost power, line power, that is power from the electrical grid to the building, was Katrina. And at that point, we thought, okay, that pretty much means the whole place is dark. And it was. Fortunately, we had all the backup power systems, and they worked flawlessly, and we never missed a beat. You know what we couldn't do? Use the bathroom, because the water. You remember that? And of course, that's a perennial problem in the city of Jackson, but the water was not functional. And we were the only ones in the building. The university and all the other organizations located in the building, of course, were not in there. But we had to keep computing for our customers. And we had customers all over the country. That was important. And my staff were incredible. Of course, it's a 724 environment, but it was an all-hands-on-deck, sleeping on the floor in the data center. And we had whole room backup, so it kept not only the equipment on, but all the air conditioning, all the lights, just in our data center and the offices that supported the facility. But sure enough, we couldn't go to the bathroom because we didn't have any water, but we kept on computing. We could do that. But that's the only time I can remember. There was some spotty little, like you'd see a building, like how does that building have power? And, nothing around it does. But in general, that's what happened. That's how strong that storm was, and the damage it wielded as it moved northward through the state, of course, just flattened the Mississippi Gulf Coast. It's incredible to think, if you look at photos, aerial photos, of the coastline after the storm went through, and then look today. It's incredible when you think about the rebuilding, the revitalization, the refurbishing that's taken place. And I think the coast built back bigger, better, bolder. And it's a thriving area of our state, for sure. It's Chris Brown speaking about power. He's the Northern District Public Service Commissioner. He's coming on at 11:05. He'll give us an update from the Public Service Commission. And then this latest ordeal with the Holly Springs Utility Department. There's a report. You can find information about this and an article concerning the report a third party produced about this Holly Springs Utility Department ordeal. And there's an article, SuperTalk.fm. Well done piece. And they gave me a copy of the report. I'll admit, I scanned it. It's pretty voluminous, though. Honestly, I got it in the drawer here at the set. We'll pop it out when Chris comes on. And then it's Rickey Cole at 12:05. We enjoyed having Rickey on about a month ago. He's former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. We'll, of course, get his thoughts on the state of the Democratic Party, as we did last time. A lot of stuff has happened. There's a lot of buzz, Rhino, about whether or not this guy, Zoran Mamdani, he, of course, the Democrat nominee for mayor of the Big Apple, a card-carrying, self-avowed Democratic socialist. Really, when you hear him talk, his policies lean more into Marxism and communism. When he talked about seizing the means of production, pretty sure that was the front and center core key tenet of Karl Marx himself. You have, of course, educated us on the rather squalorous life that Marx led.
He was a mooch from the day he was born.
Oh, it just fits.
His friends and family begged him to do something with his life, but he was such a miserable waste of oxygen that the only legacy he left was the deaths of millions.
It's so true. Yet you see the young people buying into this, and we've talked about it, all these elitist, well-clothed, adorned, equipped, wealthy people. And I mean wealthy not in the vein of an Elon Musk, but relative to the rest of the world, right? You're not worried about how you're going to eat next. You're running around with 3 personal electronic devices. You got designer clothes on, makeup, earrings. You're coiffed. You're freaking wealthy.
Yeah, it's hard to take somebody serious at a protest if they're standing there with more on their person than you make in a month.
That's no doubt.
And they're talking about inequality.
Just unbelievable.
It's the same reason I just tune out whenever Bernie Sanders starts flapping his gums. It's like, dude, you can't be a socialist with 3 houses. Oh, wait, you can because you're a socialist politician. And the politicians are the only ones that ever have any freaking money.
That's so true. And it's all about political gain. And, of course, the fame associated with it. That's what they just seem to covet more than anything. And, of course, now we got a lunatic out in Seattle. No surprise there. They've always had some leanings into socialism. But it's Katie Wilson out there that sounds like Zoran Mamdani. So we got Seattle, Minneapolis, and New York City. We're stepping aside for a break. We're just getting started in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook Bank.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. Hall & Oates bumping us into this segment. Appreciate that, Rhino. Good music there. President Trump marking 200 days in office today. The Dow, it started out as such an enjoyable evening, as Charles Emerson Winchester said when he started partaking of some substance when they were having the races of the mice through the maze. Remember, he fed one of the mice some of the drugs to jazz it up a bit. It got confused. BJ and Hawkeye got suspicious, and then they realized that the major was also ingesting. And he said, it started out as such an enjoyable evening in his Boston brogue. Well, that's the way the Dow started out, but it's now reversed its gains in the red, down 220. The NASDAQ, however, powering forward, up 122 points. Good news in the technology sector, because Apple says it's going to invest $600 billion in these United States on new factories. And it looks like they're working to reshore some production. And that's good news, and I think that's largely driven by the president pressuring the company as well as just trying to escape the tariffs. So you could argue that that strategy is working in that respect. $600 billion is a lot, and no specific announcements on where or what, but certainly that is planned, according to Apple CEO Tim Cook. And then they've also had some positive news about their business as well. amazing just looking at the net profit of these big seven. It's Google out front. Alphabet has passed everybody, passed Apple. Looking at an operating net profit of the fiscal year just ended June of about $125 billion on significant revenues over $500 billion. So they're rocking and rolling. Is Google now, most of their revenue not coming from their Google Cloud Platform is what they call it, GCP. So they're a big cloud operator. You got Amazon Web Services, AWS, Microsoft with their Azure platform, Oracle catching up fast with their Oracle Cloud infrastructure. It's just amazing to me to watch these big companies that historically have been known for delivery of products and services to converting much of their business model to these subscription-based cloud services and then standing up data centers all over the world and delivering them those services themselves. So it's a pretty neat deal. I saw the CEO of Rockwell International. They're into a lot of stuff. One of those is they make lots of technology, equipment, machinery, and so forth used to operate a factory, used in the production process in factories. And he was talking about modernization investment underway from the company's customers, which are manufacturers, factories. But he did warn that this reshoring, he's seeing that take effect somewhat. Factories standing up, opening up, building out across the country. But he warned that they do a lot of maintenance and support for existing customers in the manufacturing business, of course, and that tariffs are having an impact on the cost of parts and components that are still made abroad. So you could certainly establish and build a factory here, but a lot of the equipment inside the factory still is made abroad, and then the ongoing parts and maintenance endeavor still requires these elements, these parts that are made in other countries that are subject to the tariffs. The tariff revenue for July reported came in at $29 billion, so that's a record. 26, 27, 29 for May, June, July. You can do the math there. That's a $300+ billion annual run rate of tariff revenue. Contrast that to 2024, the final Biden year of about $85 billion. So a good $240 billion addition to the Treasury from tariffs. The question is, who's paying that? And, of course, American importers pay that, but are they absorbing that cost, passing it on to customers? Are the sellers in other countries that are making these goods and services as well, are they picking up some of those costs? My gut feel is that when all the dust settles and we're in this sort of 10 to 15% on average tariff across the board with all of our trading partners, that you'll see a combination of all three. That you'll have the foreign manufacturers absorb a third roughly. You'll have the importers, the American companies, absorb a third. And then you'll have consumers. A third will be passed on to them. It's just a theory I have, just thinking about how that would work. 15%, many economists, even those who are anti-tariff, would submit that 15% is kind of the sweet spot of tariffs as a rate. That when you get above that, it becomes more harmful financially, economically. Below that, they don't serve much purpose. So that 15% is kind of considered the optimum percentage there. How about this story out of Denmark? You seen this, Rhino, of the zoo in Denmark asking people to donate their pets? Not so people can come see them in the zoo, but for food for the animals in the zoo.
Yeah, I think there was something lost in translation between when I first saw it reported and how it's blown up since then. Because when I first saw it reported, it was a way for you to dispose of a pet's body if they had passed. instead of taking it to the vet to be cremated or burying it in the backyard or something like that. It was just a way to be resourceful with the resources you have. And now it's been either mistranslated or the original translation was wrong, but there's a whole bunch of people upset online saying they want you to take Fido to the lion's den.
And that's not true. As you know, dogs and cats are excluded. And in fact, these animals, I don't think, have a taste for dogs and cats. That's not what they consume. These are carnivores. They one article I read referenced the lynx, Lynx. It's just the way they exist in the wild, right? They hunt their prey, and they're carnivores, and they consume them. Chickens, rabbits, guinea pigs, even horses. I'd have a hard time donating a horse, honestly. I don't know about that. And I guess in the wild, they're wild horses, and these animals will chase down predators.
And there's not many wild horses left, but they are still some.
Get it. So those carnivorous animals in the United States, it looks like they're just fed standard meat like we humans eat. They're not fed wild animals. That's how and it's a supplement. I don't think that's what they get all the time. I don't know how they do that with a carnivore though, right? They wouldn't eat anything else.
Yeah, they pretty much just get meat.
Yeah. So
zoos are expensive endeavors.
That's
why Tiger King was such a rundown place.
They said chunk. What is that? What's chunk exactly? That's like the meat they feed these animals in the United States.
I think that's kind of like not gourmet, it's the wrong word, but it's a puffed up dog food.
Okay. And
it's protein, which is what they need.
That's what they need,
but
right.
It may not come from a muscle fiber.
And then mincemeat.
Which is just ground beef.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be lots of different parts. Yeah. So there's a zoologist, an expert that says the problem with just feeding lions meat is that the offal, in parentheses, liver, heart, etc., is much richer in various nutrients than muscle meat. Wild lions only start eating the muscle tissue after they finish the offal. How about that? Oh, that's interesting. Well, we're stepping aside for a break. It's middays. We're in the Element Well studio. We'll be right back.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Distance in your eyes. Oh no, I've said too much. I set it up. That's me in the corner. That's me.
Welcome back, everyone. It's middays. We're in the Element Well studio. That's a little REM. You ever seen the video of them performing that live? I'm not exactly sure where they are. It looks like there's 500,000 people out there. And they're all the REM groupies, of course. And, I mean, they're in lockstep with the music. It's pretty fascinating. When you see the view looking at the stage and they're performing, you don't think anything of it. Then when there's camera on the other side and it pans over the audience, oh, my gosh.
People.
Gee whiz, going crazy. Appreciate that. So, yeah, that was some interesting news, I thought, out of Denmark. But apparently this is a common practice there. Why all of a sudden the attention?
Well, I mean, Europe does have some strange ways of treating their pets compared to how we treat our pets. Like, Europe has always made it illegal for pet food to have any difference as far as input quality to people food.
Yeah.
But they also have like random trash cans that are recycling bins, not trash cans, where if you recycle a glass bottle, it'll spit out this much random cat or dog food for the strays. Or if you put a plastic bottle in, it's this much. They're just a different breed over there, no pun intended.
Okay. Well, I thought it was just kind of interesting that all of a sudden you get attention, but you look at their history, this has been a practice. And what we're talking about, folks, is over in Denmark, I'm not sure the city or the zoo specifically, but they were asking the public, was the zoo, for donations of certain pets, not to display and exhibit in the zoo, but to feed to the animals maintained in the zoo, the carnivorous species in particular. They're not looking for dogs and cats. In fact, they won't accept that. They made that clear. It's chickens and squirrels and those kinds of animals. So I just thought that was interesting. Yesterday, we talked a little bit, had an interesting bit of fodder about these robots that are, I don't want to say taking over, but they're certainly becoming more mainstream by the day. These humanoid-type robots that can do lots of things than just be static, fixed in a position, repeating the same task over and over. AI-powered, do resemble to some extent humans, are able to do a lot of things that you wouldn't have thought possible not so long ago by a more fixed position type robot, if you will. These move around and have arms and legs and heads and stuff on them, look a bit like humans. One interesting use case I saw in this video, I think it was Tesla, if I'm not mistaken, this particular video. There are numerous companies working on humanoid-style robots. They're a big one. But it featured a couple of humanoid robots.
Well, if it's an American company and it's a social media video, it's likely one of two, Tesla or Boston Dynamics.
Okay.
There are many other companies. They just don't seem to have the social media team that Tesla and Boston Dynamics do.
I would buy that. Yeah, they are prevalent. They are very visible. Of course, Elon Musk being the proprietor of Twitter.
And X. Boston Dynamics was kind of the front runner in, hey, look what our robot can do. And it was something like, oh, it's a box on top of two legs, and it did a flip. And that was a decade and a half ago.
That's true. But advances have occurred since then. And where I was going, the use case that fascinated me was the unloading and loading of a commercial airplane, which is an intense, laborious task. And we talked about it yesterday. I can't imagine crawling up in the belly of those airplanes, contorting your body all over the place to position the baggage. It's amazing it all works as well as it does, honestly. But this video featured robots that were unloading the bags packed on the cart into the belly of the airplane, and then showed after the plane, of course, would land and would be unloaded, removing them from the belly and placing them on the cart, then driving it to the baggage claim. That's pretty impressive.
My prediction at this point is that, much like in computing, how you've seen a back and forth race between computing power and storage capability, where one gets in front of the other and then the other one catches up and gets ahead and it goes back and forth, back and forth. I think with these autonomous robots, you're going to have breakthroughs in power density and servo load and stuff like that are going to be applied in another growing industry. It's not getting nearly as much attention as the AI robots, but in this exoskeleton kind of technology where a normal person can put on a backpack and strap some stuff to their legs and arms and lift 1,000 pounds.
That's amazing.
Because if you can have the same power density in a robot, but you don't have the AGI, that next level of AI, for it to really do the jobs of some laborers, but you have that technology that can be applied to assist those laborers, I think you're going to see that become more of a race.
There's
That's
no
just
doubt.
my prediction.
Well, there's, as you know, a bunch of money being invested in humanoid robots. I mean, Elon Musk has even said we're, year or two away from having one that's affordable to the average household to do a lot of household chores and so forth, and there are videos that feature that. But this morning, I read a piece that was really fascinating, and this was in Forbes. And it's about Amazon's Zoox, Z-O-O-X. That's the brand that they have ascribed to their autonomous vehicle company. So I didn't realize that there are regulations at the federal level in existence that require steering wheels, mirrors, and pedals, vehicle controls for a vehicle to be sold in the United States. It's got to have all those components, all those elements. Steering wheel, mirror, the pedals. So they just got a waiver to manufacture these autonomous vehicles without steering wheels, pedals, and mirrors. Why would you need that for an autonomous vehicle? That would be a set of tools that humans would require to operate a vehicle. So, and of course, they're taking on Alphabet's Waymo. There's kind of a war going on, and then you got that's in autonomous vehicles. You got the autonomous taxis, the robo-taxis. Tesla, others already have those, and they're being deployed. Austin, the Bay Area, it's just a matter of time. They'll be everywhere.
And those regulations are why, if you're a child that, or anybody that really paid attention to what's up and coming in the 90s, remember that TV show Beyond 2000 that came on Discovery Channel? They had like a whole half episode on the newest way to steer your car, and it was a joystick.
How about that?
That must have scared somebody in D.C.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And that's joysticks are commonly used to be certainly in flying an airplane. But it makes sense because it's a combination of the ailerons on the wings for left, right. Actually, the attitude of the airplane, and then you got the elevator. So the combination of all those is how you guide airplanes. And the joystick operates both. So that makes sense. Now, of course, they have yokes, as they call them. Pull back to get the elevator to go up, push in to make it go down, left, right. On the ailerons, the rudder controlled by your feet, left, right. But this is interesting. It's the first time the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has granted an exemption from these rules requiring certain features be installed in a vehicle, such as pedals and a mirror and a steering wheel. No need for those particular components of the vehicle. But this is, I think, just a glimpse of where all this is going. I've said before, people think I'm crazy, that I think we'll get within 10, 15 years maybe, we may be approaching a situation where in certain cities, it won't be legal for a human to drive a vehicle. I know people think I'm crazy for that. And then the time frame is in question, but
Yeah, I don't think that time frame's quite right.
it's coming, though.
You may see partial, like in New York City, I could see it happening, but the cab unions would never let it happen. You'd still have cab drivers.
You could be right, but we're headed in this direction. There ain't no doubt. Coming right back. Stay with us.
For all your glam.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's middays. We are in the Element Well studio. Darren in Jackson says on the C Spire text line, that's 601-879-4395. So you're saying that Alphabet, Zuckerberg, and Bezos are dirty, greedy capitalists? Well, yeah, that's what the left would, those are the words they'd use to describing. You know, I always like to point out it's little discernment on the word greed and greedy. The aspiring to succeed, to win, and achieving that goal, I don't consider greed. Greed is when you want something or you attain something that you did not legitimately earn, or you want something through the means of illegitimate achievement or illegitimate action, or should say illegitimate means. When you want to get somewhere and you want to shortcut it, and you don't want to receive whatever that reward is through producing value, I believe that's greed. Or you have achieved it without producing value. This idea that you're just in business like these companies and you're selling goods and services and the market is receptive to what you're selling and responding by buying it, and that's enriching and rewarding those who created it, have ownership in it, that's not greed. Unfortunately, we've gotten to a point where, well, they got a lot of money, they're greedy. They've got this, that, and the other, they're greedy. No, that's not greed. Honestly, greed are the lazy people, like so many of these politicians, especially on the left, that just want in your pocket. That's greed. When they talk about, as we suggested yesterday, the billionaires, they're the one ruining the country. That's the minority in this country that's causing all the problems. Well, what you're saying is, I want what you legitimately earned. That's greed. Like it or not, these companies and the people who created them, Zuckerberg, Bezos, etc., the market is what made them wealthy. It's we who parted with our money to buy the goods and services they produce. Heck, in the case, you think about it, right now in the case of Meta, which has had a meteoric run financially over the last year, the vast majority of people on the platform don't spend a dime. But it's the fact that they use it is what does generate revenue. I know, second order thinking here. All I'm saying is, just because someone has a lot, financially, economically, that doesn't mean they're greedy. Greed is about you want something or you attain something through illegitimate means, is the way I would describe it. That's greed. Is it greedy to want to ace every test and set the curve in every class? Is that greed? Whenever you go out and you're engaged in sporting competition, you want to win? Beat your competitor? Is that greed? Are you supposed to just say...
Sure, the left would define it as such.
I think they would. Are you supposed to just stand down and say, well, I've won enough, I'm going to let... fair share, right? How is that any different than the argument they make from a financial perspective, from an economic perspective? It's not. That's the point. Are you greedy for staying in office your whole damn life? You could argue that, sure. Even though you legitimately earned it, so that maybe parts with my definition. But their definition, if you want to spread the wealth like they want to do and have more equity, well, then get the hell out of the way. You're in the way. It's incredible. Here in Mississippi, by the way, this was really interesting. My friend Russ Latino over at the Magnolia Tribune, he caught on to this and he exposed it. The Mississippi Democratic Party kind of jumped on him because he said, it's not very smart policy in his view not to enact robust school choice in Mississippi. And so the Democratic Party goes out there, I guess unwittingly, unbeknownst to them, because they ain't too smart in this case, and they argue that public money shouldn't go to private institutions. You've heard the argument a million times, and so they said, well, Pell Grants, for example, go to students, not directly to colleges, just like food stamps go to people, not grocery stores. Huh? Well, you know what? School choice gives the right, the ability of the student parent to direct that money to their school of choice. What's different? Nothing. It's Chris Brown, the Northern District Public Service Commissioner, after Fox News.
Your hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We're coming at you live from the Element Wealth studio. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. We're back on this
Friday Eve.
We're pleased to welcome now Chris Brown. He's the Northern District Public Service Commissioner for the great state of Mississippi. Hey, Commissioner, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning, Gerard. How are you doing?
It
is a beautiful day in Mississippi.
It is. It's August. It's a little warm, but honestly, not that bad. It's not as sultry as it can be, not as oppressively humid as it can be in this time of year in Mississippi, but we appreciate you coming on. So help us understand what's going on in the Holly Springs Utility Department. This is, and that's in your area, in your district. This is quite the ordeal. Walk us through that. I'm not sure most people that are tuned in are familiar with what's been going on in Holly Springs up there in northeast Mississippi.
Well, Holly Springs, it came to the legislature's attention in full light a couple of years ago. There was an ice storm that started to show the extreme deficiencies in the system. I was in the legislature at the time. Senator Whaley and others tried to figure out a solution through that crisis. And so then Speaker Gunn allowed me to go into the district to try to discern what's going on and how to find out exactly what's going on so we can try to make a path to solve the crisis. So we had a series of hearings in Holly Springs in 2020. It was in 2023 or 22. And so learned a whole lot. The TVA was on the ground, TVPPA was on the ground. We got MEMA on the ground to try to understand what's going on. So the legislature commissioned $500,000 to go to a TVPPA report and then give the rest of the money to Holly Springs to do some vegetation control. Well, the TVPPA report was done and it came back pretty scathing. And so we started moving down the process. The governor and the legislature passed a bill that the governor signed in April 8th, 2024, Senate Bill 2453, that allowed us to have some sort of oversight as the PSC. And to that point, we had no regulatory oversight really over that system. We could suggest things and we could put pressure on them, but really didn't have any path to get resolution to what we found out was a pretty severe crisis. So the city management at the time slowed the process down. So basically, the legislature passed a bill to allow us to go in, find out exactly what's going on, interview the employees of HSUD, get their side of the story, try to understand the deficiencies and what's happening and what's going on to try to help the people of that district. The city manager the mayor at the time was very dilatory, so she slowed the process down quite a bit. So we started to try to get our work done shortly after the bill was passed, and they stalled, which put us 3-4 months behind. Thankfully, in this last election cycle, that mayor was defeated. We have a brand new administration that is helping because they understand that this problem was not created in a year or 2 years. This is decades in the making. The system is really in bad shape in the fact that they haven't had proper vegetation control. They haven't maintained their systems. They've not poured money back into it to update the system. And this is no reflection on the employees of HSUD. I think out of 12,000 connections in 5 different counties, some in Mississippi, some in Tennessee, they do not have the manpower or the expertise to tackle the system, and it's so degraded that it's very difficult at this point to get it back where it needs to be. And so as we find out more and more, it's more and more grim up there as far as the condition of the system. And again, that's no reflection on this current administration or the people working at the utility district. But that doesn't matter to the people that cannot rely on the lights to come on or their air conditioner to be going today on a hot day. We had even one funeral home reported that they can't rely on their chillers to keep the dignity of the deceased intact because the power could go off and stay off for 48, 72 hours. So it's a really bad situation, and we're joining hand in hand with TVA, TVPPA, the legislature, the state to try to come up with a solution.
So I've got in my hand the report from the third party, Silver Point Consulting. I mean, it's a voluminous report, and it gets into significant detail. I scanned some of it. It's incredible. I mean, even going into the procurement practices employed by the HSUD. So is this a problem, Chris, we may see in other public municipal utilities? TVA, as TVPPA, is kind of the co-op representative of all the utility districts in the TVA Valley. There's 153 of them. HSUD is the only one that has this issue out of 153. There are complaints that come into TVA as a result of HSUD. I think they testified to us it was almost 70% of all their complaints in the whole Tennessee Valley come from HSUD. Wow.
And
70%.
Yeah, so the complaints that come into TVA, because TVA is the wholesale power supplier to HSUD, and they have the direct oversight on the financial side. So we came in on the operations side. TVA is actually filed a lawsuit against them, against HSUD, because of lack of payment and then not following guidelines in the contract, in breach of the TVA contract.
I mean, within the entire TVA footprint, Commissioner, the town of Holly Springs is what, 12,000, 15,000 residents? Something like that?
The city itself is about 6,000, 600,000. But the unique situation with HSUD is one of only 3 municipally owned power companies or utility districts that go significantly outside of the city limits.
Okay.
So 70% of the customers are outside the city, and they don't have representation. So they can't go to the polls and vote out the city council or the mayor if they're not being represented well. So there's a gulf there and it's problematic, especially in HSUD when the bulk of the customers are outside of the city limits, and they don't have a say-so at all in how that district is run. So
I see.
We're hearing they're suffering. And so, of course, the further you get from the city, it's less compact. I think they have 3 connections per mile on average, which is a very, very rural system. So
Yeah.
the further you get from the city, the worse the service gets.
I see. It would appear, given that most of this infrastructure was installed a long time ago, and any that have not been consistent and current on their maintenance and upgrade and refresh and just replacement of some components before they fail is going to be a problem we will continue to see, especially in the rural areas. Is this true?
Yes. What the report actually said, on every level, HSUD operations were marked by lack of planning, documentation, and adherence to policy.
Okay.
It starts, and again, it's decades in the making. When you go up there and just ride around the district, there's vegetation all over the lines, and that's parasitic.
Yeah.
So they lose a good portion of their energy through parasitic power loss because of vegetation on the lines. It also makes it dangerous for anybody to work on that system. So I think TVPPA report came back that it's over $10 million that it's going to take just to have the vegetation cleared.
Wow.
Right now, it's testified to us that HSUD owes right now currently, they owe TVA over $6 million and $3 million to contractors. So it's a system that needs help. The people deserve help, and we just want to let them know that we're staying the course. This is kind of the last segment is a show cause hearing coming up in September.
Okay.
And we're going to get to the bottom of it and we're going to have a resolution of this crisis.
Commissioner, we got a break upon us right here. If you can hang around, we'd like to turn our attention to just get a general update from the Public Service Commission and what's going on here, not only in your district, but perhaps in the state of Mississippi and the country. Are you good to hang around?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you bringing attention to this crisis up there, too.
You bet. Commissioner Chris Brown is our guest. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
Shine star, no matter who you are, shine bright to see what you can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
Rolling.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. You are tuned into Middays. We are broadcasting from the Element Wealth Studio. Right now, we're talking to Chris Brown. He's the Northern District Public Service Commissioner. So before we move on, Commissioner, what's next on this Holly Springs situation? What do you expect?
So we're having a show cause hearing, which gives the utility district an opportunity to respond to the TVPPA report we just got. Not the TVPPA report, but the Silver Point report that we just received. We just received it July 28th. So as soon as we got it, we moved straight to the show cause hearing. We're going to be in district for that. Our district office is in New Albany, Union County.
Okay.
So we're going to have in district hearings, and so the public is welcome to come. The HSUD will kind of highlight kind of what's going on there, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for the city to let people know that the current administration didn't do this. It's decades in the making, but we all have to join together to solve this issue because it is a crisis. It's very it's almost like a third world, not exactly, but the power is not reliable. If you don't have reliable energy, then you can't have economic development.
Sure.
You don't have that flourishing. And Holly Springs is right on I-22. It's a great opportunity. If we can work together to fix this utility district, that area will explode with economic development. So it's imperative that we get this right, not only for the safety of the people up there, and our citizens and our neighbors are suffering, and we heard the call. We're gonna stay the course till we fix this.
Okay.
But it's going to lead to huge economic development for that county, that city, that area when we get this right.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll have a positive outcome here. Do you expect that the city is going to take any action just to improve the situation and address some of these concerns and problems highlighted in this report by Silver Point? Because there's a lot.
There's a lot there, and so we're hopeful. Like I said, we have a brand new administration. I visited with the mayor and some of the aldermen personally.
Okay.
And they know what state the system's in. So we just need to work together to come up with a resolution. And
okay.
The ultimate goal is affordability, reliability. When the 3 new public service commissioners took office, we focused on those 2 things. Without grid resiliency and without affordability, human flourishing it stops human flourishing. Every dollar we spend on electricity and utilities is a dollar you don't have to spend on your family.
Yeah.
We take those things very seriously. And reliability, it's hard to have anything if you can't keep your lights on or your medical equipment. I mean, it's life threatening if you have medical equipment at home and you can't rely on that power system to have reliable power to your home. Then it's a matter of life and death, literally.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it's also becoming more critical as we rely more on these cloud services being delivered by the various data center operators across the country, and all of those things are huge consumers of electrical power. Of course, you're aware that there are significant investments in new data centers being made in the state of Mississippi, in particular here in the Central District. And there are concerns about that, of how that might affect consumer electrical rates, especially with the increase in consumption coming from these companies. We had your colleague, DeKeither Stamps, the Central District Commissioner, on the program last week at the Neshoba County Fair. Had Haley Versackley from Entergy on a couple of weeks ago, and they all maintain that they don't think that we'll see any rate increases passed on to consumers as a result of these investments. What's your take on that?
We are pushing that. I actually met with some of the representatives of the company yesterday, and as if you watched our docket this week, Mississippi Power came in front of us, and they have a couple data centers, and we asked them that direct question.
Okay.
We want to make sure that we want economic development. We want to welcome these companies to come in to invest in Mississippi and to employ Mississippians. But at the end of the day, we don't want Mississippians to subsidize the generation or anything that these companies have to be here. So we are watching that closely.
Okay.
The numbers are. I think it's pretty safe to say, and what we've seen is that with these investments and the economies of scale and this extra power generation, it should make us more reliable, and the consumer cost should be less with the companies here consuming the power than if they weren't here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's certainly consistent with Entergy CEO Haley Versackley. He contended the same, that what this really does is allows the company to make the modernization investments and the capacity investments they need to be making, that to a great extent are being passed on to this one or a couple of really big consumers, and so it's just an economies of scale dynamic.
And we're gonna be the watchdog. We're going to try to make sure that that these companies don't take advantage, because basically the Public Service Commission is set up because the way utilities are done, you have a monopoly. And so you don't have free market principles at play.
Right.
And so you have one place to get energy, one place to get sewer, one place to get water. And when you have a monopoly like that, the government set up the Public Service Commission to try to be that firewall or that counterbalance to that monopoly.
Right.
So the three of us take that very seriously. We know that every dollar that you pay extra in energy bills is a dollar you can't spend on your family. So affordability and reliability are our focus. And it even goes with economic development. We want you here. We welcome these companies to invest in our state. You know, the phase one of AWS was $10 billion. It's a lot of money. But we don't want to subsidize. We don't want those economic development projects to be on the back of normal Mississippians and the ratepayer.
Sure.
So we're watching that closely.
I think that's totally appropriate and proper and just reasonable. In other investments in the state to just increase our power footprint, as you know, the governor put a group together back during the legislative session, I believe, which consists of industry leaders, business folks, and others to just come to the table and make sure that Mississippi is ahead and not behind the curve when all these demands for electricity in particular may catch us off guard. And his idea is let's get ahead of this and start talking about how we can make sure we've got sufficient power in the future.
Gerard, it's the most dynamic period of time in the utility space that we've seen in a very, very long time. I dare to say that it's more dynamic and impactful now than since Edison discovered the light bulb, right?
Yeah.
So the energy consumption and how we're going to generate power is all at the forefront right now. And so we can look to other countries to see how to do it. And I think the governor's spot on. You have to have dispatchable energy. You have to have reliable energy. You look at Germany. Germany was an economic powerhouse in Europe. They made bad energy policy decisions. First quarter of last year, they were bragging that 50% of their energy came from renewables. Well, that's fine, but they didn't focus. They didn't keep the focus on reliability or affordability. So what happened is they pay the second highest per kilowatt hour rate for power of anybody in the world. So they start losing their industrial base. So where are Mercedes built? Mercedes is out of Alabama, BMW's South Carolina, Volkswagen's in Tennessee. Well, they're losing the industrial base, and now the per capita income, I think we just saw a recent report. Mississippi, and we passed them. Well, and it's incumbent that we make the right energy decision. I think that's what the governor's talking about. And I've met with the speaker and the lieutenant governor. We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
So the road forward is we have to have the energy supply. We have to have it dispatchable, reliable, and affordable. And that all points to natural gas and nuclear. Nuclear is going to be the wave of the future. TVA just commissioned their first nuclear reactor in Oak Ridge. Supposed to be completed in 3 years. Once that's completed, hopefully that's the design that we can replicate and bring the prices of nuclear down, and it'll power the future at a much lower cost than wind or solar.
I appreciate you coming on, and I agree with you. It is the most dynamic and exciting times, and I dare say American innovation will play a role in solving this problem. It's American capitalism and innovation will address this insatiable appetite we have for energy, which is a good thing because it powers the technology that's going to drive our future. Appreciate it, Commissioner.
And Gerard, I'll leave it at this.
Yeah.
I believe all energy sources ought to be considered, but it's got to be reliable, and you can't have market disruptions with subsidies.
From the Seabrook.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
back, everyone. It's middays, so when we're having this discussion about what defines greed, you found something. Cora, you fed a question to Cora and get its take on it. But it occurred to me that greed could be used to define the climate change madness. Let's think about it. So, yeah, we're going to have all this renewal. It's Germany that the commissioner was just describing. How does that not equate to greed? I could make the case for that. The greed was, by God, it doesn't matter if we don't have enough power to operate the economy here. We're bound and determined we're going to make this place green. We're going to make it renewable. We're going to force it on you. We're not going to let it occur naturally, organically, based on market dynamics. Pitch all that out the window. We're shoving this on you. We're forcing it on you because I feel better about myself, right? The virtue signaling garbage. Or as you like to say, just looking for attention. Is that not the ultimate form of greed? You know the outcome produced from your actions are bad or negative, yet you personally got some perverse satisfaction out of it. You're thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't know that that's necessarily greed by definition.
Well, it's stupid.
It could be selfishness. It could be stupidity. It could be ignorance. It could be a lot of things, but I'm having a hard time fitting that into the definition of greed.
Okay. Maybe I'm taking a little poetic license here and extending it onto that. I would say that selfishness
it could be
in
greed-driven.
Okay. I like that.
Because, greed in the simplest definition is a desire or a want for something. And it's often applied to a desire for wealth or in the form of gluttony, a desire for food or a desire for power.
Well, I disagree in that the desire and aspiring for those things is defined or should be defined as greed.
Well, that's in the simplest terms. Like if you start actually breaking down the definition, desire is not a strong enough word because greed is supposed to be a negative. So
right.
That desire has to be insatiable or overcoming or what's the word I'm looking for? The greed has to override your other senses. Like that desire has to override your common sense.
Okay. I've always thought of it, the word I use is covet. You covet it. And guess what I mean by that is you don't really care about the means to achieve it. And you don't really care about the outcome. And if you can achieve it through some means other than those which would be legitimate, lawful, proper, appropriate, now then I define that as greed. I don't define Elon Musk as a greedy person simply because he used his God-given talents to create a lot of stuff that has made him rich. How's that greed?
I think by definition you could call it greed, but in that case, greed is not a negative.
All right. I'll buy that. But
that gets into the whole Wall Street quote of greed is good.
Right. So we've gotten to the point, however, where, as you point out, there are only negative connotations of the word. There are no positive connotations. If a sports team, take a football team, going undefeated in a season, all the way through, winning the championship, the highest level championship, never losing a game. Is that greed?
And that's where the left would say yes.
Okay. Well, they're wrong, in my view. So
Because there's not enough equality, not enough parity.
Well, and I maintain that that's the pursuit of excellence. And I think that's a good thing. Who doesn't want to be excellent?
Pretty much anybody that votes Democrat. They don't have that desire, it seems. They just want to wallow in misery and bring you down to their pit of despair.
And I think you're right. That's kind of what I'm saying. But and again, this discussion for me is driven by all of this content. It's video, it's written content, article-based content. Just hanging on the wealthy people in this country. Every single problem is because we have wealthy people. And it's quite the opposite. And it's not being aware enough and recognizing all the great things that we have. It's always focused on what we don't have. Now, I'm all about trying to make things better. That's fine. But saying the way to make things better is just take from one group, filter off the top, and give it to another, which is what every argument they make consists of. It's just that. Yeah, if they just give us more money, everything will be great, which it won't. Not only that, it's never enough.
Point, look at the studies on how much money it would take to solve world hunger. And look at how much money has been spent trying to solve world hunger in the last 50 years.
And right. And you know what? I maintain that it's the systems designed to prevent people from becoming billionaires that have caused the hunger. I know. Second order thinking again. Not understood, is it? They've got this view.
Sometimes even the systems designed to help are intentionally unhelpful, like California's plethora of non-government organizations in charge of fixing homelessness. Well, if they actually fix the problem, they don't get any more money, so they never fixed the problem.
So, right, I agree. You know what? For me, that's greed. That's greed. I don't want to solve the problem. I want to keep the gravy train going. How the hell is that not greed?
It is.
It's just not billions. Nobody's getting to be a billionaire out of it. And the idea, to your point, is that it's usually associated with economic status. And if you've achieved a certain economic status, you're greedy, just naturally, organically, in their point. And that's just not true. It's wrong. And again, the policies they want to implement and the systems that have tried this in the past have produced the worst outcomes. And if you're looking for the perfect equal utopia, that doesn't exist. And it's my opinion that when Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, that kind of ended that at that point. Well, that's before any of us inhabited the planet. I can't question God's wisdom on that basis. So, you know what we as humans, I believe, are compelled to do? Find the best system. If you're looking for one that achieves perfect equality, equity, egalitarianism, that doesn't exist.
Because there will always be someone smarter, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah. Are we going to question God on that basis? I'm not. But what God expects us to do, in my opinion, is utilize the talents He blessed us with to do our best to contribute to society. And getting rewarded for that is part of that system. That's what motivates people.
But we got entirely too many moochers that think that their talent should be writing slam poetry for their cats and they should be rewarded with millions.
So I'm going to tell you again, to me, that's greed. It's not greed to want to go figure out just using a case that everybody could understand. And it's not greed to figure out a way to make autonomous vehicles that can serve society or rocket ships that can orbit the Earth and provide things of value and get rich doing it. Of course, I'm talking about Elon Musk, and that's just a couple of the many things that he's done. He's a prolific factory organizer. He walks the floors of the factories in his companies, and he's a brilliant engineer. He's blessed with those incredible skills, and he's gotten wealthy as a result of it. Is that greed, though? I don't think it is, but they would call him greedy. I mean, they call Trump greedy. Now, he's a billionaire real estate mogul. Is that greed? I don't know. He did a lot of good in all those buildings and hired a lot of people. But again, that's a discussion of the system versus systems that they seek to implement. Like Crazy Man Zamdami. Coming right back. Stay with us.
Polyupa, Mississippi.
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, you know the house band plays Red, White, and Blue by Leonard Skinner, and we're had texts flying around within the group last night about adding songs to the set. That's what I suggested. I think that's a good tune. I mean, we've got the instruments, the vocals, and all that stuff we can play. That one, I thought it'd be fun. Have you ever been to Spain by Three Dog Night is one that was recommended. What do you think about that? It's a good tune.
Could be fun.
Yeah. I like Out in the Country by Three Dog Night. Maybe my favorite of all the Three Dog Night tunes. They got a bunch of them. Joy to the World, of course, that kind of put them on the map. I don't know that anybody knows what that's about, but it's nonetheless a fun song. So, you know, I was thinking more about this concept of greed. Maybe I'm stretching it a little far here. The school choice opponents, right? How is that not? You know, in their quest to protect their little fiefdoms that I think are done at the expense of others. See, that's just it. What the left wants you to believe in all these little speeches that I've watched. We played one yesterday from what's that guy's name in Texas? Tallarico. He's kind of a rising star, honestly, in the Democrat Party. A very effective use of social media. I give him that. You know, he's a young guy, decent looks, and very well spoken. I don't agree with anything he says, but he made a speech that got what appeared to be the partisan audience really fired up about, you know, the minority that's causing problems. He was trying to essentially equate the Republican Party to being racist and misogynist and transphobic and all that stuff because...
In other words, it's a Democrat in the day that ends in Y.
And he says, no, that's not the minority that's causing problems for you. They're not taking away your health care, your food stamps, and I can't remember the other things that he cited. Immigrants was another group. They're not causing the problems. Muslims, they're not causing the problem. Got to play the identity politics stuff. No, it's the billionaires, is what he says. So, and then all these other videos, mainly from Democrat members of the House and Senate, that say, oh, yeah, we can't have health care, we can't have, you know, ubiquitous food stamps and some of these other programs. It's the billionaires' fault because they're not paying enough. And so I don't see that as causing a problem. And it's not that I'm opposed to some reasonable forms of safety nets for those who legitimately need a safety net by no fault of their own. If you're elderly and you're institutionalized, for example, some folks with legitimate disabilities. And I don't mean, as you and I have talked about, hey, doc, I get a headache every couple of weeks. Okay, here's your disability certificate. Go get all the benefits you want. That's wrong. That's greed. How's that not greed? Maybe it's only little money a month, couple of grand a month. I understand that doesn't get the attention that someone making billions does. But nonetheless, the concept still applies. You're coveting, you're receiving some financial benefit or reward that you didn't earn. And even though society may deem that you're disabled legitimately and you're entitled to it, that's different. I wouldn't say you're entitled to it. Society is determined that it wants to provide assistance, and that's fine on that basis. But when you're untruthful, you're dishonest, and it takes other people to play that game as well. I don't see how that equates to the board of directors of Tesla saying, we think so highly of Elon and what he's producing that we're going to give him a raise. That's their prerogative. And you know what? You have a choice. You don't like that? Don't buy their stuff. Don't buy their stock. Don't invest in their stock, because that's the capital the board gets to give the guy money. I know, second order thing here. You got a choice there. But by gosh, you give people a choice of where to educate their kids. We can't do that, right? It's just unbelievable. And the Democrats using this, and we're going to talk to Rickey Cole here in a minute, a good friend, a former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. We'll get his take on all this and then other stuff as well. I can't wait to visit with him. It's time for a break. Top of the hour. That means Fox News SuperTalk News. Again, Rickey Cole, former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party, is next.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We're in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday Eve.
We're pleased to welcome now Rickey Cole. He's a former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. Hey, Rickey, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Gerard, thank you. One question, is it Friday in Jackson? Because it's just Thursday down here.
Oh, it's Friday Eve is what Rhino says on Thursday. So it's the eve of Friday. Sorry about confusing you on that. Yeah, that's kind of our normal deal. We're just sort of getting geared up for Friday, I guess, Rickey, is what we're doing here. So we're at least invoking the word, the name of the day, as part of our intro into every hour. It just happens to be the eve of Friday, kind of like Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So, well, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, we had a little primary election down here the other day on the Republican side that was pretty interesting. We've got a new state senator. Yeah,
Don Hartness defeated the incumbent, Robin Robinson, in the primary in that district that is mostly, if not all, Jones County, right, Rickey?
It's not all of Jones County. Warren Barnett has most of the African-American precincts in Laurel.
Okay.
But it's most of Jones County outside of the city of Laurel, and there's some precincts in Forest and Greene, and I think 1 or 2 in Wayne as well in this new gerrymander.
Well, and we're seeing this get more attention, of course, nationally as well with what's going on in Texas, as you know, with the Democrats in the legislature in Texas fleeing to Illinois, which is a very chopped up state from a congressional districting perspective. And honestly, Ricky, for someone on the right, that seems kind of rich to me. You're protesting the gerrymandering in your home state that has been utilized quite effectively in the state to which you fled to sort of show your protest.
Well, it's a sorry situation all the way around, Gerard. You know, we have been cursed in this country with the gerrymander since the beginning of the Republic. You know, the Elbridge Gerry, after whom it was named, was part of that first generation of the founders. And in some jurisdictions, there have been positive steps forward to try to avoid this antique practice that frankly does much more harm than good in terms of drawing districts that aren't contiguous really, that don't contain communities of interest and don't serve the people's interest in the best light. I think that what's happening in Texas is outside of the regular order of things because of the timing. You know, the Constitution calls for the census once every 10 years. And the practice since we've had redistricting for congressional seats has been that the legislatures would draw those lines once. After they get the census results, they draw those lines once and they'd stay in place for 10 years. Now folks want to fiddle with that, but the law of unintended consequences is the son of a gun. And I'm afraid that if we get into this game of, well, we're going to redistrict after every election, you already see it possibly spreading to other states as a reaction on the congressional redistricting. But what's to stop the levels of government coming on down the chain from saying, well, Mississippi legislature needs to redraw mid-census term, and the Madison County Board of Supervisors needs to redraw, or the Board of Aldermen needs to redraw, or the City Council needs to redraw after every election. Mm-hmm. And that way lies chaos. So I think that you'll appreciate this analogy. I think we ought to play the ball the way it lies and leave the districts. We need to leave the districts as they are from census to census and let folks run candidates in the districts as they exist. Let the people in those districts get accustomed to those districts and not do what was done right here in my home county. Because again, I've been through 5 redistrictings and statewide and a lot of local fights as well. And the law of unintended consequences is the son of a gun. We saw Chris McDaniel's home being drawn out for raw political purposes. And all that did was provoke Chris to go all in for Mr. Hartness. And the people saw through the scheme of the gerrymander. And they turned out an effective, good state senator. They turned her out based on the fact that they didn't like those insider games being played with their district. I think most people want their congressional district or their legislative district or their supervisor district or their city council ward to represent their community of interest. And when that changes for raw political purposes, regardless of which party does it, it's not good politics and it's not good government in the long run.
Well, I think, Ricky, you could make the case that Senator Robinson's vote on this judicial and Senate redistricting that occurred in her county there was a large part of the reason that we now have Senator Hartness.
Oh, there ain't no question about that. I think that the judicial redistricting is raw politics too, because I believe the story is that the reason the judicial district was changed was so that this state senator from down in Leakesville could run for circuit judge at some point in a second position. And you could do a whole show talking about the strange way we design these judicial districts. But that could have been, if there was a need for modification, it could have been modified without it being so transparently political to draw in way down in Greene County, draw it in with Jones County, just for the purpose of drawing somebody in or drawing somebody out. That's raw, naked politics, and it doesn't sell well when you take it back to the sovereign people and they see what a mess has been made just for raw, personal, political reasons.
It definitely seemed to have been a major factor, and I think resonated with the voters in that district. It feels almost, Ricky, like just talking about raw politics, kind of serving as a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When a legislative district or congressional district looks like a Rorschach blotch, and that's what some of them look like, people will look at it and say, "Hey, that doesn't make any sense."
Yeah.
And when you cut up towns, and another thing, the legislature ought to quit, and we ought to put it in the Constitution. We need to quit splitting these voting precincts. Sometimes the legislature will split one precinct 4, 5, or 6 ways, and it confuses the dickens out of everybody. And it doesn't serve any purpose except the protection of incumbency.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the protection of incumbency is a legitimate reason in redistricting, in my opinion.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, since you're talking about incumbency, I don't know that you and I have ever had this discussion. What are your thoughts about imposing term limits? Let's say for members of Congress and the U.S. Senate. What do you think about that?
We already have term limits. They're called elections.
I tend to agree with
no
you.
member of the U.S. House, no member of the U.S. House is ever there for more than 24 months without having to go before the people again. No member of the Mississippi legislature is there for 48 months without having to go before the people again. So we don't need term limits. We need more contested elections. We need more candidates. We need what happened in Jones County this week to happen in every legislative election every 4 years, in both parties and in the general election. We need spirited elections that engage and involve the public. And there should be no safe seats anywhere in public office.
Okay. Well,
the cure for what ails democracy is more democracy.
Okay, I can buy that. So basically, you feel like that the voters have the ability to term limit anyone. I don't want to put words in your mouth here. At any level in an office that doesn't have term limits is essentially what we're saying. We got a break right now, Ricky. Yeah. We'll have to scoot, but if you can hang with us, we'll continue this discussion on the other side.
It's too hot outside. I'm glad to be inside in the air conditioning.
All right, we got Rickey Cole, former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. We're in the Element Well studio, coming right back.
We've sent that rip.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We're talking to Rickey Cole, former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. So this whole redistricting thing and the gerrymandering that occurs, it just seems like it's gotten out of control. So it's my belief, Rickey, and I get your take on this, that when you see those sort of shenanigans, and you see in particular the massive amount of money being spent on and invested in political campaigns. I don't think we ever thought we'd see, $200 million judicial races, which is the case we had in Wisconsin earlier, right, for Supreme Court justice. Who would have thought that? A Senate race in a big state's $250 million these days. To me, it signals that perhaps we've conferred too much power to those in political office, that they're willing to spend that much money and people are willing to support them with that much money just to get a vote in the U.S. Senate. Your thoughts?
Well, the ultimate power resides with the people themselves. But I lament more than anybody I know the expense that goes into political campaigns and the money that has to be raised. I think there was over $1 billion raised and spent in the presidential races last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know this number to be exact, but I saw it in a pretty accurate source that in the Senate race in 44 down in Hattiesburg, Senator Johnson spent $170,000 just to win his primary. $170,000.
Wow.
That's about 4 times as much the average person makes in a year in this part of the country. But I'm becoming an old man, and old men complain about the rising cost of everything. And but so much of that is because of what I call the drive-through syndrome. When I was a boy, whenever there was a death or a revival or a dinner on the ground at church, everybody cooked and brought food to church, and we ate what was cooked in the homes, unless somebody didn't think much of somebody's cooking, and we walked past that particular bowl. But now, when people have family reunions, they have them catered.
Yeah.
And if you're going to bring some food to somebody's house for the funeral, you go through the drive-through at KFC, or if you got a bunch of money, the drive-through at Cane's, and you bring that to the and people don't own lawnmowers. They pay somebody to cut the grass, and they pay somebody to wash their dishes and vacuum their floors and everything else. So we've catered. We've asked for our elections to be catered when they really ought to be volunteer affairs. And it's the decline of voluntarism in politics, where we hire out everything, and we hire these consultants, and we pay them all this big money to do things that we really could do as volunteers at the grassroots level ourselves. I suspect that if you calculate, and I'm not any paragon of virtue by any stretch of the imagination, but I suspect if you counted up what money I've been paid in politics and what work I've done in politics, it would figure out to about a tenth of a penny per hour. And I'm proud of that, because most of the stuff I did was voluntarism out of my heart, but we don't have enough voluntarism in politics. And I think that, especially now with the technology we have available, we don't really have to spend the amount of money that we spend in campaigns if campaigns are run smart.
Yeah.
But you got this whole body of consultants who say, in order to win, you got to do this, and in order to win, you got to do that. And of course, all that comes with a big price tag. And the tail wags the dog on these campaigns so many times, the tail being the consultants. The consultants have a big say in picking the candidates. They have almost total veto on how the money is spent and who raises the money and where the money goes. And I think that's unfortunate. And I've done some consulting myself, but I'm a little tiny minnow in a great big ocean full of whales.
It's a big industry. You're right about that. It's a big industry. It's expensive. I'm a little shocked to hear about the amount of money spent in that Senate race you were just discussing down in the Hattiesburg area. Gosh, there was a time, Ricky, you could win a House or Senate seat in Mississippi for $5,000, right? Or maybe less. And that's 170, and that's just one candidate. That seems to get on up there. But I don't know.
Mr. McCoy never raised money, never had to raise money until he became Speaker.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He just ran, just getting out and about, talking to people without really spending any money. Okay, yeah. Billy McCoy we're talking about, the iconic Speaker of the House, well known for his term in that office, and in that role while in office in the House. So that's amazing. It just seems like it's gotten out of control, and I don't see anything to stop it. How do you feel about all these corporate PACs and all this significant amount of money that's spent through these third-party organizations? Even though they're limited on how much they can give directly to a campaign, they can flow that money through these third parties. You have any concerns there? That seems to get a lot of attention.
Well, as far back as 1987, the late U.S. Senator David Boren from Oklahoma had a bill in the Senate that would have called for voluntary public financing of general election U.S. Senate campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
I have always been an advocate for public financing. I think that it would change the tenor and tone of our politics. But the Supreme Court has ruled that speech is money in Citizens United.
Mm-hmm.
And so that opened the door for untold billions to be spent. And, in my experience, when somebody hands a candidate $100 or $200, it's because they believe in them and they want to support them. But when the checks get much bigger than that, they don't necessarily come without strings attached. And the bigger the expense, a lot of times, now that's not always true. There are altruistic people out here who will max out to you and just say you do a good job.
Yeah.
But the bulk of the special interest money, by definition, has special interest attached to it. And then it makes it real difficult for an elected official to be his or her own man or woman when they know they got to spend 4 hours a day across the street raising money in a little dark room, a little no window room with a consultant sitting there telling you call this one and promise him this, and they'll send you $5,000. If you don't promise them what they want to be promised, they'll give the other guy $5,000. And that's what our members of Congress on both sides of the hill in both parties, they spend as much time dialing for dollars, if not more, than they do actually in the work of the Senate and the House. And that's shameful.
Especially in the House. We should be able to find ways to do that. Especially in the House, right, Ricky, when it's a 2-year cycle. I mean, the day you're sworn in, you're thinking about the next cycle generally, right?
It used to be just the House.
Yeah.
But now, when you got these hundreds of millions of dollars that have to be spent in a Senate race, look at what was spent up there in Montana and Pennsylvania and places like that last year. The senators are just as much a slave to the fundraising as the congressmen are.
Even on 6-year cycles.
Right across the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee is right across the avenue from the Senate office buildings.
Okay.
And the senators walk across that crosswalk and they go in that little cubby and they spend 3 or 4 hours a day begging for money.
Unbelievable. Rather than taking care of the business of the U.S. Senate and their office.
Right, because they feel like they got to stay there, and in order to stay there, they got a quota. You got to raise $1.5 million per quarter, or you're not going to be able to stay in the Senate.
I don't see anything changing this in the future. Do you?
Yeah. This technology we've got.
Okay.
Atomizes our politics.
It's a good point. I agree.
One of the most exciting things I've seen in campaign politics in the last few years is the ability to pinpoint target digital advertising.
You're right.
And for the $1,500 we spend for 30 seconds on WLBT during the news, we can reach 10 or 15,000.
You're right.
Voters by name in their home or on their phone. And so
I agree.
There are ways to be a lot more efficient.
I got you.
You got a lot of fat to cut on there too.
We got to go, Ricky, but it's always a pleasure talking to you, man. You stay cool as you can in this August in Mississippi, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you some more soon. Thanks a lot, Ricky.
The pleasure's all mine, Gerard. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Rickey Cole, former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party, has been our guest. Coming right back. Half an hour left.
From the Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Love is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring. Bound by wild desire,
the great Johnny Cash.
I fell into a ring of fire. I fell into a...
Now, you know, normally when folks sort of imitate Johnny there on that song, they will usually pronounce the word fire as far. But he really says fire there. So, CC in San Antonio says, I never knew I was supposed to be paying somebody to wash my dishes. Oh, yeah. I get what Ricky's saying there. And I would say that's a function, again, it's a great point illustrating, in my view, the wealth that's been accumulated and achieved in this country and just moving up the economic ladder. So, heck, when I was a kid, it was common for us kids to kind of walk the neighborhoods to see if a neighbor would let us cut their grass, even though they could cut it themselves. It was altruistic, as the word Ricky used. They were just trying to figure out a way to maybe help you out financially as a child, but you're producing something of value for them, saving them a little time, cutting their yard. I think I used to do them for $2 back in those days. And that only worked because my dad was kind enough to buy the 29 cents a gallon gas to put in the mower. If I had to take that out of the profit, that'd have been a tough deal. But where I'm going is, good grief, how many are there just in our area here of these mow and blow and landscape lawn service companies? There are tons of them. One of the things is we've got technological improvements in all those equipment. The zero radius mowers that haul butt across the grass, for example, and all the trimmers. I mean, you see all these trailers loaded up in trucks, crews, and man, they blitz the property and they're in and out. They generally do fantastically. They're in our parking lot here at the building every day, it seems. But I say that's because of the wealth we achieved. For me, I have a service, but for me in business, it was, well, I benefit in that I get this task, this chore taken care of. I can concentrate on my business and producing wealth and value that way. And that's just also, I think, consistent with the rise of the services, the expansion of the services economy in our country, which is a good thing.
I think if you want to get more people involved in governance and politics, and they're not going to do anything about the money in politics, then just cut the terms in half.
Okay.
Every congressman's got to run every year. Every senator's got to run every 3.
So you don't have concerns that would just put them in full-time campaign mode?
They're already in full-time campaign mode.
Okay. You've got a point there. But...
And if you got a chance every year to vote them out, they might actually do what you voted them in for.
And as you know, there are some who would sit in this studio and say, I love the campaign process. And there would be others that would tell you offline, I really don't like it. I remember attending a political event where there was a candidate speaking. It was a candidate speaking event. It was a local deal. And the first thing one of them said, facing the election, this was a Saturday, the following Tuesday was, man, I'm so glad for this to be over. I'm thinking, That's the wrong thing to say. That wasn't very thought out. Did lose, in fact. This campaign's just this exhausting me, swearing me out. I get it. But, that's a time when, man, I can't wait to get elected and get in office, and I'm so excited. And it's
almost like not everybody is meant for public service, just like not everybody's meant to win a Cy Young or a Super Bowl.
There you go. And that's exactly what came across there. How about this one? When they stand to speak, I'm not too good at public speaking. That's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. You're running for public office, and the first thing you tell us in your speech is that I'm not too good at speaking. The last thing you want to do when you're selling something, in this case you're selling yourself, is to at least prioritize in the sequence, at least, what you're not good at. I just couldn't believe that. I'm not real good at public speaking right before they started speaking. You're already thinking, well, then that means you probably wouldn't be good at this office. Oh, man. Let's see. Ask him, how does he help us understand the scope of practice that a Democrat does something, it's okay. When a Republican does the same exact thing, the exact same way, they say it's criminal.
That's why I tune out whenever a Democrat starts crying about gerrymandering.
And I hear you, and I agree. But I think what you heard from Rickey there is he doesn't seem to be a fan of any of it from any party.
Well, of course not. His party's not in power.
That's probably true. But if they were, and I agree, and
they've already said that they're going to go, quote unquote, nuclear on it.
I did hear that. I absolutely did hear that. Here's the question. Does he have a point? Should we abandon this midterm redrawing and just do it every 10? What do you think?
Wasn't it Pennsylvania under the Democrats that kind of started this whole ball
a
couple years ago?
They were.
Yeah, so good for the goose, good for the gander.
I'm with you.
You pulled the pin on the grenade. Sorry.
And that's why those who bolted from Texas look kind of silly. I find it particularly rich that they went to Illinois. Didn't get much out of Rickey on that.
What's funny is that they are such poor students of their own history that either they didn't realize this has happened in recent memory in Texas to the point where they had to change the Constitution to put steps in place to prevent it.
Yeah.
Or they think their voters are so naive and ignorant that they can pull it off and nobody remember the fact that the Democrats in Texas have done this multiple times.
A little of both. I was fascinated by Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, was on. You saw this on Colbert, and Colbert even called him out. Had the map showing the salamander-shaped district, and it's like he ignored it. Didn't want to talk about it. And I think what Colbert was obviously trying to point out is the hypocrisy of it, because he was, we welcome these bold Democrats in Texas that are saving democracy and all that kind of stuff. And then Colbert,
but make sure you stand in front of the big background with Pritzker all over it.
Exactly. Who's just terrible, that guy. Who, by the way, is quite wealthy. I'm not sure if he's a billionaire, but he's pretty dang close. Is he among those who are smearing the billionaires as well? Because and that's the other thing that gets lost in that argument.
He's a billionaire.
Okay.
$3.7 billion, according to Forbes.
And see, the difference is, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't have any problem with that. It's that when you have picked those with more wealth as your convenient target and your scapegoat, the culprit for everything you don't like. And it's sad because you see the people that attend these events, and then they broke out in a chant, tax the rich, like, tax them how much? How much more do you want? And how does that help? It doesn't. To do what with it exactly? I know, second order thinking again, but you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this because this person over here is a billionaire. That's just crazy. That's insane. And you know what's crazy is they're all using and consuming whatever it is that made them billionaires. Like, wow, they're saying tax the rich. Remember the old Occupy Wall Street deal a few years ago?
Oh, yeah. Have they got that smell out of the sidewalk yet?
Oh, man. It's we had a similar wave of this in the 60s, you know, in San Francisco, of course, the Summer of Love. And most of those kids all came from very affluent families, and they're out there acting like they're just poor and destitute. And, you know, we didn't have cameras like we do today, but there have been reports that, you know, they were sneaking Big Macs in the back alley and all that kind of stuff while acting like they were trying to protest the inequities and the shame of people are starving while they're stuffing their mouth with Big Macs. While Ray Kroc was on his way, the founder of McDonald's, to becoming quite wealthy. They were making him wealthy, but mad at him at the same time. I don't think they get how idiotic that is, honestly. Get on Facebook. The billionaires are the problem. You just made Zuckerberg another $1 when you did that. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with the final segment today. Stay with us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. Final segment, middays. Andy in Tupelo says, all due respect to Mr. Cole, but unfortunately, it's almost impossible for everyday people to run for state or local office due to finances, work, etc., especially when facing an incumbent at the congressional level. I agree that there's definitely a challenge there. You know, I've talked about this before. The founder's vision for serving in public office, as I recall, Rhino, if you look in the Federalist Papers and some of the founding documents that framed this country, the concept was it really shouldn't matter who it is. That's because government was quite limited, right? They didn't have the sort of control and power that it does. Didn't have the money that it does either. And the idea was, you leave the farm, sacrifice, leave the family at home. The neighbors would take care of the farm, right, and your family. You go away for a while, and then the only contact you have was, a letter. It's the only way you could communicate. And you go away for a while and take care of the people's business, and then you go back. Rotate the crops, as they say. That was the original idea. It wasn't a Joe Biden who was there 50 years and enriched himself as part of the process along the way. That wasn't the concept. And so I agree. And there, it does appear, as Ricky said, as you said, that we now seem to be in constant campaign mode at all levels of government, right? We're seeing that here in the state of Mississippi. A constant campaign role. I mean, you're running a 1,000-day campaign. It feels like rather than focusing on an office. I'm not really sure what the solution is, but and the other thing is, you could, if you're in office and you expect to run for a different office, move up the ladder, as they say, you can go out and have fundraisers and raise money just on a generic basis, not for any particular office. You've sort of got the means to do that. Nobody gets suspicious about it. Doesn't make any big waves. If somebody who's not in office were to go out and do that, what are you running for? What are you running for, right? And it would just cause a scurry and a lot of chaos and controversy. And that's fine. I mean, I get it. I'm just pointing out that there are distinctions, to Andy's point. So maybe it would make sense on that basis for people to kind of term themselves out on their own accord, by their own power. I don't know. Step aside. Rotate the crops, as I like to say. There are very few people who live, here we go. In Wayne County, one very small precinct was dragged into the redistricting. Our circuit clerk's office had to absorb the calls of the special election. There are very few people who live in this voting precinct, I think is what they mean. This is totally ridiculous, and many people believe, as your guest just said, much of this is done to get Senator in District 43 eligible to run for a judge position in this newly created district. It's hard to not conclude that that's what was behind this. I agree. And certainly that got exposed. So you have to give it to Senator Don Hartness now. I mean, he hasn't been officially sworn in, but he's the senator-elect at this point because he has no general election opponent. Chris McDaniel gets involved as well, exposes that. He's an extremely popular figure, especially in his home county of Jones. And when you look at those districts, and they did a pretty good job of exposing that, I think Robin's done an admirable job as the senator representing that district. And perhaps there was enough votes in the Senate for the judicial and the Senate district redistricting for her to vote either present or against it, and that would not have been on a record. But that's, hindsight, as they say. Don't really know much more about that. Greg and Newton said Trump isn't in campaign mode. He's in kick-you-know-what mode. Well, that's because he's termed out. But let's be honest, Trump, I think, sees it differently, and I like the way he sees it. He says, succeeding is campaigning rather than just going out bloviating with a bunch of high-level talking point rhetoric. He actually takes action, which is what business people do.
Sure does seem like the Republicans in the House and Senate are still in campaign mode because they're having pro forma sessions to prevent Trump from having any recess appointments.
That's absolutely true. That's a good point you make there. But I would say he's in do mode. He's in action mode more than anything else. And, in fact, we didn't get to it today, but looks like there are going to be some meetings between him and Putin, him and Zelensky. Maybe, just maybe, we can get this stupid war behind us and move on.
I forget his name. There was some Russian Politico that was talking about the Americans have put up forth the proposal that would be agreeable.
Okay. Well, maybe that's imminent. We're out of here today. Back with you again tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.